Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. If you're looking for a podcast about instructional strategies enhanced by technology, you came to the right place. In our conversations, we'll talk to tech experts, share ideas and strategies to help you build your toolbox with tools that you can use in your class immediately. Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. We're really excited to have Miss Jackie Bresse-Rodenkirk. And I told her I hope I didn't butcher her name.
That's okay. It's Bresse-Rodenkirk. It's a mouthful.
Yes, and we're out at Foxbank Elementary, and we wanted to kind of talk to you about all the amazing things that we've gotten to see you do over the last, well, for me, a couple years, and then I've got to bring Jimmy out here a couple times,
Yes.
And every time we leave here, we're talking about all the amazing things that are happening in your library and in your school, and that you are just like a big part of all of these things. So will you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been a librarian for 5 years, and I was a teacher before that in Chicago. I moved down here 5 years ago, and I took a lot of what I did before with journalism and makerspace and combined that. Before I was a journalist before becoming a teacher, and I thought naturally journalism, teaching, it kind of combines beautifully to librarianship, because we're always asking questions in journalism, and we're always a jack of all trades,
Right.
but a Jackie of all trades. I like
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
And with teaching, you're kind of a jack of all trades too. So marrying those two together seemed like a lot of fun. And my sister is also a librarian, my older sister, and she is a mentor to me. So I've always wanted to be like my sister.
Right.
So I kind of am now. And
Yeah.
we do touring engagements as the library sisters.
Fun.
Nice.
So that's fun. Touring as in we'll do little professional developments.
Yeah.
That's
Fun.
great.
We don't hit the road nationally yet,
Yeah.
just in South Carolina.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Where did your passion for education and this desire to kind of be a lifelong learner come from? You know.
I've always loved to tinker and to find things out. And as a kid, I would like to go out in the rain and see what happened after the rain. I would walk barefoot down the street, playing in the puddles. I would always be in the woods, building things. I love games. And I think where the part of the love of radio and learning that way from like about the world came from my father taking us on Sunday drives and listening to NPR.
Right.
And hearing all the stories about the world. And I was mesmerized listening to the radio. And that, I think, also, I had a wonderful librarian
Yeah.
growing up, Mr. Shira. And I think that combination is just something that naturally lends itself to wanting to learn more, loving hearing people's stories. I love to talk to people. I love to hear about their backgrounds. I love different cultures. I love to travel. And all of that is like learning new things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I'm the same way too. That's why I love traveling overseas. I used to take kids overseas to get those experiences and things like that. And so that's one of the things that drew me to education as well, is just that exploring that learner profile that we know all about. So that's great. So when we walk through your media center, every time we walk through, there's kids engaged in lots of different activities. Talk about, what you do and how you think about to get students engaged into the activities that you're creating.
I think that here at Foxbank, we have the overarching umbrella comes down from our principal, who is amazing. And her mantra is, we want kids to love to come to school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so when you have a boss who says, get the kids to love to come to school, hook them that way.
Right.
It's a free range. It gives you so much ability to say, what can I do that's going to be fun for the kids that they're
Right.
going to love? So for instance, today we have gaming. This whole week we have gaming. We've got a lot of great games for sight words, for the littles. We have dexterity games. We have coloring, like collaborative coloring games. And I think they can do whatever they want when they walk in.
Right.
After we read a story, because a story is, that's what brings us all together.
Right.
And then we, of course, check in on our birds, because all year long we watch the evolution of explore.org, the bald eagle's nest.
Right.
And I mean, you could just splat that on the wall and hit every standard that there is. And they're very engaged in that. They come around. Sometimes they'll walk in just to see what's going on with the birds.
Right.
And then they'll just walk out and, they'll be, oh, thank goodness the birds are still there.
Yeah.
But we just have a lot. I think that the key is to have so much going on.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to get someone hooked. And to listen and to know who my kids are.
Right.
To know what they love and to lean into that. And a lot of it was not my thing, but I made it my thing because it's their thing.
Right.
Like, I am not into science fiction, or I wasn't. And I wasn't really into horror books, but let me tell you, they love it.
Yeah.
So finding comics and finding things that they love, it just pulls them right in. So I have kids who did not like to read last year, wouldn't read, and would say, I hate reading, who are now coming in every day wanting a new book. So I feel like those are my trophies right there.
That's awesome. And I noticed we talk a lot about like the student ownership in your media center or library. Can you just talk to us about, or maybe give us some examples of how your students are kind of owning their learning and taking on some leadership roles? Because the leadership roles in here, like they are, one thing that I love when we come in here is that everybody is engaged, and it's like they're leading their own groups without having to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm. I believe in being a student advocate. So that's one of my main roles, is I'm an advocate for them to have a place at the table. And in our newsroom, which we're sitting in now, every morning, they come in, and I love to watch it. And right about now in the year, they're in such a groove where they come in, they look at the schedule, they know who's on. It is fully student run. I am here to put out little fires and, of course, edit anything that goes live on YouTube.
Right.
But they run everything, and they're doing everything that you would in a normal news station. So when we go to the news station to see, I think it's WCBD, they see, oh, that's my job.
Right.
I do that. I do exactly that job. So these are real life skills that they have: the camera operator, the sound, the producer, the director, the teleprompter, the news anchors, the talent handler,
right,
the writer.
I love that. And
they know if they didn't write the script the night before, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And they also know that there's no ad-libbing.
Right.
My major rule. I had to let them know, those, the bloopers that you see the anchors have,
right?
That's their last day on the job. They don't get hired back after a blooper like that.
Absolutely.
So no bloopers here.
That's great.
Another thing, we have a lot of ownership in the library because I make sure to tell the kids, this is your library. This is your place to be. And what do you want it to be? And they are as much a part of ordering the books and selecting the things that we have as I am. They can check out their own books. They know they're very good at self-selecting. They're very good at knowing, okay, would my parents like this or not? Because I've already asked them so many times in the beginning of the year.
Right.
So they're very good at self-selecting. And the older ones, if they see a need, if they're in just checking out, and they see a need. If there's a line, they will hop in and they will start checking out the littles.
That's awesome.
They'll also just see needs. And I think that's where we are as a building. When you see a need, you fill the need. And I really like that. It really warms my heart to see that created community of helpers and doers, and the freedom to do that. So they know that they can do those things. I think it's really important for that to be part of the community here. I have little aprons for them. So if they have off time, or if they're having a bad day, they can even ask to just come here, and they'll put that apron on, and they'll be a tech helper or someone to check out, or they'll file the books away, or they'll help with the littles. So there's a lot for them to do. And they also see that we have a lot to do, that we are a big school.
Right.
And we have a lot of checkouts. So they see the need for the help. And I love that I have a lot of student helpers.
That's great. So, you know, when you're creating activities and creating all their lessons, what role does technology play in creating those?
I think that technology is, now it's just intrinsic to everything we do. I like for it to not be the focus.
Right.
Because I want the focus to be, here in the library, I want them to learn how to hear stories and learn how to tell stories, tell their own story of their learning, and to see things in a different way. And that could be by using technology. That could be by making things crafty. I like to use technology as much as possible because I like to learn new things, and I like to learn it right beside them, because most of the time they are leading me in that. And when we do get our podcasting stuff, I make it a point to, when we get new stuff, I make it a point to open it with them so that they can see it, they can read the directions, and they kind of lead with that because they're so good at it. They're, what do you call that when they're born into the technology, they're a native, right? So I am not a technology native. You know, I had my first computer in high school, but they are native to all of this tech. And so it makes them so much more adept than I am. So I use them a lot. And also it helps them with ownership. So they set up a lot of this here with us in the television studio. And they'll help us with our podcasting studio. And I think they'll have a lot of ownership with that.
That's awesome. A couple of the activities, and if you want to give us some more examples that we've gotten to witness or that we've seen on social media, possibly using you've used the iPads for like chatter picks, or can you tell us some other activities that you've kind of utilized the technology? Just some more like concrete examples.
Mm-hmm. First grade was studying the bones, and it was kind of like an abstract thing for them, being in first grade, studying the skeletal system. And so I knew that the Merge app had a skeletal system in it, and I wanted it to be first grade appropriate because a lot of the stuff with the anatomy is not elementary appropriate. But I found a giant skeleton. And so after talking with the teachers, and that's a whole huge part of it, is having conversations and having relationships with the teachers about what they're doing, and trying to build on it with them instead of like just beside them, really talking and like a conversation volley instead of just one side with the teachers about the curriculum. They came in and we discussed the bones. They named all the bones that they were supposed to know by the standards. And with the iPads, we got to look at the bones in virtual reality And they were amazed to
Yeah.
see their faces, look at the bones, like right in front of them. They tried to touch them. And then they would like blow up the pelvis and put their head in the pelvis and look around. And it was just amazing, you know, and they would name all of the things that they knew. And with that iPad and virtual reality, was a lot of movement and a lot of like showing each other. And even if they were shy, they could do this on their own in the corner, you know, or they could do it with a group. But they were all over the room because they could make the skeleton huge, like to the ceiling. And they could see things better. And there were so many questions that were asked after that. Like, is this real? Is this what this looks like? And you could see them looking at their own bodies. Like, that's what's in here. So what we would do is we took a screenshot of each of them by the skeleton that they like made big or small or however they wanted it. And they placed the skeleton where they wanted it in the room. Like the thought of where they wanted to be next to their skeleton. And they said the names of the bones with their skeleton next to them.
Nice.
In VR. So
Right.
It looked really cool. It looked like they were like hanging out with their buddy, the skeleton. And then we took that into Chatterpix and made the skeleton talk. And they just were so tickled by that. But it was a lot of learning. It was a learning curve for the teachers. It was a learning curve for us. And then they got to learn how to use VR. They got to learn how to use Chatterpix. So now they want to use Chatterpix for everything.
Right.
So this came without me at all prompting this. They took book covers and they made the book covers talk. So some of them did book reviews after that with a talking book cover.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Like the character.
Yeah.
So a lot came from just them knowing how to use that app.
Right, that tool.
You
yeah.
know, in a creative way. So when they have another unit, they can show their learning any other way.
Right.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, sometimes exposure to those student creation tools is important, because then once you give them that choice, then they go, all right, what tool is best to create this that I need? And that's a great way to use that resource. So
yeah, I tried to make sure we have a lot here at Foxbank. We are very blessed with having a lot of resources, and I feel great, not stress. I feel great responsibility to push that out, to let them all know what's here.
Right.
For equity. I want them all to know this is what we have. We have these resources. You could use these resources for all sorts of things. So I feel a great responsibility to share all the resources we have with everyone. And it's a big school.
Yeah.
So it's a big responsibility.
Going, talking to, we're talking to teachers, talking to other librarians, and where would you kind of maybe tell them to start if they are thinking about creating and changing up the way that they're doing lessons? Where would you kind of advise them to start?
Well, I mean, Twitter is really where it's at. As far as tech chat, makerspace chat, there's Future Ready Librarians chat. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I know that our Berkeley County School Librarians group gets together and we share out, and we're going to be doing more of that over the summer. There's something called Den Space, and I'm a fan of social media for getting ideas and sharing ideas. South Carolina, the SCASL, the South Carolina Association of School Libraries, they have a wonderful website as well, and they have special Twitter chats. But Facebook has some really great groups for making, and I think librarians are incredibly gifted at crafting spaces and community sharing of these things. So if you're not involved in the local library group or the SCASL group, then you can join one of the Facebook groups or just hop on Twitter. I mean, make a Twitter account, put yourself out there. And that's kind of tough. People don't like to put themselves out there, but I think one of the best things I did that helped propel me to see what was going out there nationwide was getting on Twitter. And one of the DC librarians, Casey Boyd, she's actually the school librarian of the year this year.
Wow.
Nice.
She's the one.
Yeah.
She's the one who I had a workshop in Illinois, and it was all about social media and how you can control the narrative of what's happening, show the narrative of what's happening in your library, because people don't really know what we do.
Right.
And that would be our fault if they don't know what we do.
Right.
So putting it out there of all the things we do, because we have so many hats that we wear.
Well, and it's making your learning public.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot in our office, just like how we utilize some of the social media for professional development, really getting ideas and learning from other educators across the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's awesome. One of the things that you kind of jogged my memory when you were talking about putting it out there was that I had one of your students, when we were working together, ask, is this going to be on the news show? So what happens when they create in your media center or library?
So when they create, they want it to be on the news show.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll create something just for the news show.
Nice.
Like we had a leprechaun trap that was created just for the news show. She came after school and she wanted it to be on. It was just her own idea. It wasn't a class project. That happens a lot because it's out there, all the things that we have. They'll come up with their own ideas of just a little pet project that they want to do, and they'll start to tinker in here all by themselves. We had someone say, well, I haven't used the 3D printer this year, and I want to. I've seen other people use it, so how can you help me do that? And we set up, time after school. It was just one-on-one, and he really learned how to use that 3D printer, and he wanted it on the news.
That's great.
So it was a lot of fun. But we share it on Instagram, we share it on Twitter, we share it on Facebook. And even when we were videoing our parade today, they were like, can you put this on Facebook? I want my mom to see it. I want my grandma to see it.
Right.
That's great.
Yes.
So I think we like to get as many community members involved. And I think that's a way we can do that by using all of our options with social media.
But you created learning. You created learning that was important to that child, that he was then willing to come after school and use his own time, and that flexible learning. And that's where that passion for learning comes from, that you're instilling. And that's, I think as all educators, that's what we want from all of our students. So that's great that you're doing that. Is there anything that we didn't bring up that you would think that would help and benefit other librarians and teachers?
I think it's important to know, for a librarian, you have to be what your school needs to be, what your school needs you to be. And that's going to be different at each school. And I think if I looked at other libraries, I would think, well, they're doing more, they're doing this or they're doing that. But we're filling the needs of what our schools need. And I do get jealous because I do have my library bestie, Rosie, in Charleston. And I love to check her out on Twitter, and we share ideas. And I feel that we're competitive. I don't know if she feels we're competitive, but I'm competitive.
Right.
So if Rosie's doing something, I think, oh, Rosie's doing that? How can I do that?
And do it
differently?
and take it up a notch, right?
Right. So we do like to do that. And with my sister, really competitive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun that way.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you being here, and we love highlighting all the amazing things that teachers are doing. If you know of any teachers out there, if you're listening, that are doing great things, email us. We definitely want to have you on the podcast. If you're listening and want to be on the podcast, email us. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. It was what you're doing is great. Keep up the great work. And,
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Yes. And also, if maybe something that she said has inspired you
Yep.
to try something new, we would also love to see what you're trying out in your library or in your classroom, maybe that you've taken from our conversation today. We're always looking to highlight.
Absolutely.
So,
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
have a good day.